Welcome to Porch Play Chat, sponsored by the American Association for the Child's Right to Play, or more affectionately called IPA USA. IPA USA is the USA affiliate of the International Play Association. And as part of our efforts to promote play, we've introduced Porch Play Chats. And these are conversations with people who are just as passionate about play as we are. I'm Deb Lawrence, and I'm president of IPA USA. You can find more about our Porch Play Chats by visiting our website at ipausa.org. Up in that top right-hand corner, be a friend on our Facebook page, subscribe to our YouTube channel. I don't know what we do with Instagram. Rachel, what do we do with Instagram? Do we friend? What do we do? I don't know. Follow on Instagram. And magically, every Monday morning, a new Porch Play Chat will appear in your feed. Joining me on the porch today is Rachel Franz, and Rachel's a fierce fighter for honoring children in childhood. She's the education manager at Fairplay, which works towards systems level change around how kids get hooked on screen time and builds a world in which kids can be kids, free from the influence of corporations. As a former educator and director in both indoor and all outdoor early learning programs, Rachel also offers training and consulting to ECE programs on a wide range of topics through her consulting business, Twig Thread Consulting. So Rachel, talk to us about what you're going to talk to us about today. What's our topic?
Great. So I was at Fairplay, we work on thinking about the systems level barriers to children having healthy relationships with technology. And so I was doing some unrelated work looking at my home state's licensing and came across a requirement for all Washington childcare programs to have a screen time policy written and published for families. Okay. And so what I was interested in talking about today is, what do we need as educators to have strong screen time policies? Do centers and providers have enough information to create these policies? And how can we ensure that we are creating screen time policies that are developmentally appropriate and actually meet children's needs? And I was talking to Dr. Susan Lin about this, who's the founder of Fairplay. We used to be called Campaign for a Commercial-Free Childhood, and an incredible author, researcher, clinical psychologist. And she was mentioning that she saw a study several years ago about state regulations, and the study she sent it to me, found that in centers that only 24 states had regulations that limited screen media use for children under 24 months. So this is talking about infants and toddlers, but and I haven't found any other research, but I have a strong feeling that many of our states don't have any regulations or
screen time
requirements for screen time. So both Deb and I feel a certain way about regulating and over-regulating childhood, right? And I think that there's like a really interesting leverage point for supporting teachers and families in making sure that children have healthy relationships with technology in our policies and sort of how we regulate. So curious what you think about that, Deb, and then we can dive in more.
I don't think early childhood programs should have any screen time because children have more than the recommended amount of screen time coming to school, going back home, because parents are busy and they're trying to get dinner on the table and do all the parenting things they need to do, and they're tired because they've worked all day. And so, turning on the TV to cartoons is, I did it as a parent. But the American Academy of Pediatrics says no screen time for children under 2 unless it's FaceTime with grandparents. Right. So, or Zooming time with grandparents. And 1 hour a day for children up to 5. And they get more than that already. So I don't think any screen time is needed. I think we should ban all screen time. I don't think we can call ourselves the educators if we're having screens in early care and education programs. I think that's crazy. So that's my opinion.
Yeah, and I mean, and then we get information from NAUIC in their developmentally appropriate practice position statement that lists screen time and use of digital technology as a guiding principle, as one of their top 10 guiding principles. And what they say is, and I quote, used responsibly and intentionally, technology and interactive media can be valuable tools for supporting children's development and learning.
Which is the exact reason why I'm no longer a member of NAUIC. And I was the governing board member of NAUIC.
Right, yeah.
And I left them because that is not a principle of child development.
Right. And I think the reality is that teachers are getting all of this, getting this type of messaging, which sort of gives us a green light. And I think that, like, it's one thing if a program is using a digital camera to invite children to take photos and document their experience as a as a form of artistic expression and memory creation and those sorts of things. And it's very different from, like, okay, now we have our hour of app time and every, preschooler gets a tablet and that sort of thing. And my fear, right. And
very different.
My fear is that there's not enough information out there for early learning programs yet, right? We're going to create that information to make those informed decisions about what this screen time, if they are going to have it because NACI is approving or for whatever reason.
Yeah. And don't get me started on the reasons. We won't go there.
Right. So, the Washington State one, I actually copied it. They said that if providers offer screen time to children in care, the screen time available for each child must be educational, developmentally and age appropriate, nonviolent, and culturally sensitive, and should be interactive with staff for preschool age children. Children must not be required to participate in screen time activities. Alternative activities must be provided to children in care when screen time is offered. Screen time must not occur during scheduled meals or snacks. For preschool age children, the total screen time must not exceed 2.5 hours per week for children in full day care, or 1.25 hours for children in half day care. And yeah, I think I'm glad that it says 2.5 hours a week. I think that made me feel a lot better. And I think like the things that I get stuck on is making sure that this screen time is educational, developmentally, and age appropriate. And
culturally sensitive.
yeah, and I think that there are many folks, including Fairplay and our Screen Time Action Network, that have put together resources around this. So we actually just launched a screen aware early childhood action kit, which provides guidance to both families and educators around preschool age screen use. And there's a great tool that people can use to make sure that the screen time is educational and developmentally and age appropriate. The issue, and these resources point this out, is that there are, when you go in and you look for educational apps for preschoolers on an app store, right?
Mhm.
Things are labeled educational and then have a ton of advertisements.
Mhm.
They have autoplay so that children just want to keep playing, and they manipulate children into wanting to stay on longer.
Mhm.
They and then educational often as labeled in an app store means more like rote memorization and Miss Rachel is an example who claims that it's this YouTuber that claims that you can teach a baby to talk and teach children all sorts of different vocabulary and that sort of thing through these videos, and
You cannot.
You cannot, right?
Your baby can read was sued and is off the market.
Right,
So don't
yes.
believe that stuff.
Correct.
Oh God. Well, and I
So-
want to go to what might be acceptable, what we might frame as technology: a light table,
mhm.
a digital camera,
Yeah.
a microscope. But that is not what people read
Correct.
when they say using technology, right? They read computers, iPads, smart boards. The other thing it's not is putting on the YouTube channel to seeing the wheels on the bus.
Yes. Yeah, I've seen
Or
many programs do that.
Oh my God. Or children, they would say, oh, that's educational because it's a song. But I don't care what your voice sounds like. They don't care what your voice sounds like. Just sing the song with them, right? So,
Yeah.
and I've even seen them put on the YouTube channel to read The Very Hungry Caterpillar. Don't do that. Read the book with them.
Right.
So, I think I worry that with the permission that we're giving them to even have I'm glad we have a screen time policy, and it should be absolutely no screens for children, right? Here's the technology that is acceptable to use: a light table, a digital camera, a microscope, any of those things. But using screens, iPads, computers. I mean, not only do they take up so much space in a classroom, or children have issues when you take them away from them.
Right.
I mean, really, we need to be thinking, and don't give me the argument that says, well, technology is here to say. You're right. But the technology we have today is going to be nothing like the technology they have in 10 years.
Correct,
so
yeah.
Why in the world are we wasting what we know about how children learn, which is hands-on, developmentally appropriate? And I've even moved away from developmentally appropriate practice. I try not to use that term anymore because I don't think it's no longer appropriate in the way it's defined.
Yeah.
But now it's developmentally effective. Is it effective for the child's development?
I like that.
Across all domains, not just in their cognitive domain. So I'm using developmentally effective now in my college courses, and I've moved away from developmentally appropriate because it's not appropriate anymore.
Right. Right. Yeah. I appreciate that reframing. And I think the more that we can support families, support educators, and learn ourselves what is actually developmentally effective and around technology, and often that is like less or none at all is more, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And I don't want to shame any families especially for using screen time. And I think, right, there are so many there's so many traps around looking for things that are educational and things like that, whereas it's, I would much rather have a child be taking photos with an iPad or engaging in that way than, passively swiping through an app kind of thing. Yeah,
exactly. And recognizing that families can watch educational programming with their child at home, but it doesn't need to happen at school. It doesn't need to be a part of that daily programming or options in an early childhood classroom. It just doesn't need to be there. They're getting more than they probably need at home. So but understand, I mean, as a parent, I put on the cartoons.
Yep.
Scooby-Doo. My children are old, so Scooby-Doo was, very important back then. And so, I do think there's a balance that everybody needs to have a lens that they look through, a filter of, am I just tired and can I sit down and read a book with them? Or do I really need to get something done? When Rod was little, and I've told this story before, I kept him away from TV as much as I possibly could. I think I let him watch Sesame Street. But when it was time for me to cook, I had a drawer and a cupboard for Rod.
Yep.
And there were pots and pans in there and plastic bowls, and he had wooden spoons, and he did his whole musical drumming, which was interesting because when he went into band, he was a drummer.
Amazing.
But this is like, he was like 12 months, 18 months, 24 months, up to 3 when we lived in Germany. And that's what he did. And it was so hysterical to me that he then became a drummer.
Right.
In band. Right. So, I mean, so think about those early experiences and how they shape who they become later. Yeah. And then think about what's the best use of this child's time.
Right.
Is it to be a part of cooking and imitating with mom or dad in the kitchen, which may lead to them becoming a drummer in band later on in life? Or is it watching TV? So, or playing on the iPad. So I think, those long-term outcomes need to be something else that we're focusing on, not just what it is I need to get done right now.
Right.
So
we can't offer a blanket statement of technology is here to stay, but then expect folks to know what to do with that. And to, it doesn't offer a green light for displacing the essential activities, hands-on,
and play,
real life play. Yeah, exactly.
Everything you read about in child development says children learn through play. And even though IPA as an organization worldwide doesn't want us ever to say that you should be doing playful learning, because it's the play that's building that foundation for future learning.
Right.
But it's not, sometimes when we say, oh, in a classroom, and this is a whole nother Porch Play Chat, but in a classroom where we say, oh, yes, the children play, but it's not play. It's teacher guided.
Right.
It's not child initiated, following their interests, playing as long as they want, with who they want. And so even the definition of play gets foggy in there, because people, and I think early childhood educators, and I was a director for years and a teacher for years, you feel pressure to get these kids ready. You have parents who want their children to be successful, and which is another reason why parents may feel trapped in saying, well, if I don't give my child an iPad with educational software, then I'm not a good parent. When if you just let them play outside or play inside with hands-on materials, you're doing more to get them ready,
right,
than doing that educational software. So I think those are the things we need to say. It's almost, I've always wanted to write a little, it would be an app now, scary. But I wanted to write a book that was do this, not that, right? So, on TV when they have I don't know which commercial it is, but I wanted to throw something at the TV when I saw it. It's with parents sitting on the couch with their baby in one of those rocking musical baby seats. And I wrote a letter to the company and saying that's not the image parents need to be seeing. They need to be holding their baby, talking to their baby, singing with their baby, not watching their baby rock in this mechanical. Oh my God, it was not. I was so upset, and I haven't seen that commercial in a while. But it's the perception that people have that technology will help my child be ready, when that is the exact opposite. It's kind of like, No Child Left Behind. The intent was for no child to be left behind. The outcome is that every child's been left behind, right? So it's, we have to be really careful. And we have to go back to what we know about how children develop, and not focus on what the newest, latest thing is.
Right.
All this technology mess that we're in.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's my perspective.
Yeah. And I think there's also a fear that, because there are so many careers in technology and so many uses for technology later in life, that if families don't and educators don't start children early, then they're going to be behind. But really, it's the way that young children's brains develop. It's
hands-on is not flipping a screen.
Right, exactly.
That's not hands-on.
And they are from a brain development perspective, the activities that flipping and swiping are displacing, right, is going to set your child up for needing to develop those things later, or changing their brain chemistry, because if they've got instant gratification on this screen, and maybe they won't work as hard for whatever they need to work for. And it's this whole cycle that I think that a little bit of screen time at home is fine, and right. And the more that we embed it into schools and, prioritize it in our early childhood programs, the less ready children are going to be. And that's exactly my fear, right?
It is. Oh, and it's a reality. I mean, we're already seeing, not only, I just saw an article on the damage that screen time is doing to children's eye development.
Yes. Yeah.
And so it's almost like we need to highlight those. I don't ever want to be an alarmist, right? And I don't want to scare parents, But I think they need to understand that when you do this, this may be the outcome. And when you do this could be the outcome. Because if we go back to how the brain is developing, and we go back to Piaget and Vygotsky, it's not technology, even though technology didn't really exist back then. It's those hands-on manipulation, building up a block thing, having it fall over, trying to build it a different way. It's all of those hands-on experiences with real materials, nature-based or better, that is making those learning connections in the brain that's going to be there. That's how they're going to, those are the connections they're using. It's like building a house. And what we do in early childhood is the foundation. If you don't have a strong foundation, your house is going to fall down.
Right.
If you don't have a strong foundation of learning synapses in the brain, it's going to impact how they're able to learn later on. So
Yeah.
it's the, if you want this, here's what you need to do.
Yep.
Right. It's the do this, not that.
Right. And I think that's what I love about our Screen Aware Early Childhood Action Kit, which I'll
Yes,
give
please.
you, is that it offers like the yes activities to do in place of screen time.
Yes.
And takes you through the concerns and the facts, but also gives families and teachers that
An option.
yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
You could do this instead of doing this.
Yeah.
And this is what it does differently, right?
Yep.
So for those of you who would like to hear me rant rave more about technology, one of our very first town halls at IPA USA was every tool is a weapon if you hold it right. And that is available on our YouTube channel, and it's free to you. And we really go through what's the world recommendations for the use of technology, what's the US's recommendations for the use of technology, which are much more generous than the world's, and how we can frame what technology is good and what technology isn't in an early childhood classroom. So every tool is a weapon if you hold it right, and you can just probably YouTube search it and it'll pop up. But anyway, that's one of the advocacy efforts that we tried to do to get people to think differently. And that was done right after NNC came out with their new DAP statement. So Rachel, this has been amazing. Thank you so much for joining us again. Stay right there while I close this out. To learn more about IPA USA, please visit our website at ipausa.org. And until next time, keep on playing.